I'll stop sharing the screen so that people can see your faces a little bit bigger. But we have a few more questions. One, I think, for you, Louisa, about the, you mentioned, both of you, a couple of times already about the air quality in Baghdad, and the fact that like this is one of the country that is the most vulnerable in terms of climate change. In your reporting and in your visits there, have you seen any kind of hopeful signs or project, especially when it relates to water quality? Can be a no.
Off the top of my head, I don't know any, but that is not the same as saying they don't exist. I mean, I think it's interesting, we were talking about the youth protests earlier and how, this kind of, for now, this round of revolt is over, the political system is very strong. But then the question becomes, okay, how long can this continue for? And there are these two huge extra strains on Iraq that you sort of don't see quite in the same way elsewhere. One is the demographics. There are 1 million people being born a year, which means that the population is swelling hugely. And then, as you say, it is the 5th most vulnerable country in the world to climate change. Vulnerable being the key word there, right? It's not the case that it is the hottest country in the world. It is the case that it just kind of has so much dysfunction in its political system that it's not really equipped to cope with what it has. And, I think there are very real questions, not necessarily in the next 5 years, but in the next 10, 15, whatever, maybe slightly further, what pressures this is going to add to the politicians who at the moment have absolutely zero interest in reforming the system. They, over just 2 terms of one prime minister in the mid 2010s, people, one estimate was that $551 billion of state resources have been siphoned off. No politician wants to step away from that, but climate change is making people have to leave their land. They're having to pile into the cities. Pressure is rising on that. 1 million people are being born every year. One has to ask, is this going to be one of the things that tips the balance?
And just to add to that, I saw it firsthand compared to what I saw in the 90s. The streets were cleaner in the 90s. The air was cleaner. There were more green spaces. I remember I used to go to this celebration square and watch fireworks, and there'll be clean air. And now it's very rarely to see a green space in Iraq, and that's something is very disheartening. The traffic is insane. Everybody complaining. It was like, oh, LA has the worst traffic. I was like, imagine going to Iraq, Baghdad. I've never seen anything like this in my life, on top of pollution. So I have no idea what happened there. I kind of know, but it just I don't know what's going to take to fix it. Hopefully some more honest people up there in a position who really care about Iraqis.
Yeah. Another question that we have is, do Iraqis see and read your reporting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the reporting is published in English, which obviously precludes a vast number of the Iraqi population from reading it, right? But one thing you do see very commonly is translation. It's very frequent that reports in the Washington Post are translated incredibly quickly, and therefore they are basically available in full. I know that there are some publications which take the decision to do the translations themselves, particularly for sort of big and impactful pieces of reporting. And I think, there's really a pretty major case for that going forward, because people are interested. They do want to know. Stories sometimes get picked up in the media. We reported a story at the end of last year about how the former prime minister, who had come to power with significant American backing, had basically overseen a commission which involved the pretty serious torture of a lot of allegedly corrupt businessmen. That was in the media, the Iraqi media, every every day for quite a long time and had impact. So I would say Iraqis can at least read the stories when they are, if they don't speak English, which of course many don't, if they are translated, or if it breaks through. But it is not the case that the sort of product as such is available to them at the point of writing, which is a great shame.
Mm-hmm. A question for you, Salwan. Going back to your personal story, are you, what are your goals? Like, you've been working on this for years now. What's your goal with the whole project?
I'm happy I was able, Olivier, you the first day you started, and when I started, I was like, hey man, I want to go to Iraq and I have this idea, and this is the last chapter of a book I think I'm working on. And you're like, yeah, let's be patient. Every time I tried to go, something happened in Iraq. The last time we booked everything to go, former President Trump called Soleimani, and then that canceled everything. Iraq changed. And we finally went and did it, and I'm really happy. I couldn't really. It's a book. I couldn't really finish the book without having a conclusion on all the feelings and things I've been thinking of since I started this project. So I hope this project, once it's published, it will be the start of the hard work starts to finally put this book together, put all this work from the past 10 years and longer together, so people can really learn more about my whole story, not just me going back to Baghdad, about how I left Baghdad, about how all of my Iraqi fellow people went through, what they went through, and things like, for example, like things I've seen and experienced even doing my work. Like, for example, watching at that time former President Clinton ordering some strikes on Baghdad, and seeing that on my own eye as the air defense working to bring down US flights, and then pass forward doing, as you know, I work for the Washington Post, so I do some politics, and here I am standing next to President Clinton. So like, how do you put that to words? So hopefully I can write a chapter about that.
Excellent.